Hi, friends. Give me a moment. We don't start for another minute. I am pulling up my slides because why not? Why is it mad? There we go. All right, let's see how I do with screen sharing. Are you all seeing my screen? It just kind of like says it is. No, I can't see that it's doing that. Okay. Well, then it's lying. Let's see here. Still no? Still not doing it? Ah, yes, the requisite sacrifice. Well, I mean, only if you get the extra crispy, okay? Um, the uh, the screen sharing gods really prefer extra crispy. All right, let's try this again because naturally we can't have it. Be happy to do what I want it to do. Let's see what happens if I put it in the same side. I'm gonna try and do multiple screens, but that's just a lot to ask of it. Um, Now, this is going to get interesting. Can you hear me now?
Oh, we can hear you. We just don't see your screen yet.
Oh, it says I'm sharing. I'm so confused.
Unless I'm doing something wrong.
Should have been giving you the prompt to go.
I can't see it either, so it's not just you.
I mean, I'm giggling because literally it says sharing to this tab. There should be like a streaming something or other. You might have to click.
I don't see any.
No, no, but still no. All right.
Nope.
Well, it's about to get interesting. All right. Let's see what it wants. I'm gonna try it without the presentation-y stuff, which is probably a pain, but let's give it a shot. All right, do y'all see? You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna turn it off and turn it back on. I'll be right back. Because why?
Welcome back.
Let's see if this does it. How about now? Or is it still cranky?
It's cranky.
Oh, why must it be so cranky? Okay, let's. Y'all are very patient, kind souls.
I'm just tired. Try me tomorrow. Maybe it'll be different.
All right. Share your screen. Share a window. What happens if I share a window? I don't even know. It's so angry. I don't think it likes me sharing it, which is fine. We will just do it the obnoxious way. So let's go ahead and see here. All right. How about now? Can anybody see my screen? Or is it just still very mad?
It's still mad at you.
It's still mad at me. I mean, I've got like 5 notices here. Okay. I promise you all, 1 whole minute. I'm going to shut her all down. I'm not shutting down the computer, but I'm going to close all of Discord and rejoin. So just bear with me. I'll be right back.
I'd like to welcome you all to the game show, Where's That Screen?
It would be mine, of course, that decides that it doesn't want to work. Let's try one last time.
I'm really hoping mine works after we got it all set up this morning.
I just watched it do the thing, the loading thing, and then it went away. What is it sharing?
It's just going to have to navigate through the conflict.
I mean, apparently.
It'll be a demonstration.
Well, if it's going to be this cranky, who even knows why it's being this cranky? We're going to start by dropping you some slides so you can look at them, because I am going to refer to them, whether it decides to show them or not.
So are you doing that in the chat window?
No, it's not. I mean, it is literally telling me. I might even just for funsies, I'll show you this delightful little message it's giving me that's clearly a lie.
Is your slideshow being cranky?
I do not know. You'll see that it says I'm sharing my screen. Anyway, it's fine. It's all good. Maybe halfway through it'll change its mind and start sharing. So I'm going to give you guys access to the slides that you're welcome to look at. So these are the slides themselves. I am going to run through them on a low level, but you're welcome to chat here. You're welcome to follow slides. I'm good with whatever. The slides are also going to be available later. Really what matters is what we're talking through. And I will try to avoid saying next slide as much as possible, but just so you can follow along. Okay, so if you don't know me already, I am Beth. I'm one of the Sim Central founders. So just excited to be here. There are a couple other founders here in the room, which I love. One of our founders had to be on a plane today. We're excited to be here, not just me in this presentation, but also just broadly to be able to help host this year. I've been doing simming for a while. I know that probably is a thing that we all say to some extent, but I feel like it's always helpful to give you some context. I started simming when I was in high school, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So now you can go ahead and do the math to know how old I am. And took a very long break in the mid 2000s until I was pulled back into it by a friend who said, hey, come do this cool thing during the COVID shutdown. And it was one of those moments where I needed something that was mine in my life. And they haven't been able to get rid of me since. So here I am. When I am not doing this, you may hear kids in the background. They've been good about not interrupting me yet, but that's not out of the question. So I'm a mother, I've got all kinds of other fun things, and I work for a startup, so lots going on in life. However, simming is really one of the things that I do that gives me the most outlet to be and do something of myself. Oh, geez. Speaking of Tilly, I also have a cat who surprisingly is leaving me alone. She's also around here somewhere. Her name is Tilly, named for Ensign Tilly of the Discovery. So, yeah. She's not at all like Ensign Tilly, ironically, but it was still a worthwhile name. All right, so today I called this surface tension for a reason. We'll get into why we're talking about surface tension later, but really I wanted to talk about the part of character development that sometimes folks shy away from because it feels a little bit difficult because of the intensity of it, because sometimes we just don't like having to write about negative things. So I'm going to go ahead and dig into that. If you have ever been in a presentation that I have done before, you may have heard me reference this particular piece. So Robert Heinlein did I think it might be 5 or 6 pages long piece called On the Writing of Speculative Fiction decades and decades ago. There's a link to it at the bottom of slide 3 if you ever want to read it. It's not particularly earth-shattering, but it does create some really helpful thought processes for how we think about writing. And one element that I've always appreciated about Heinlein is his approach to what makes a story compelling. So in this one, I'm going to read the quote since we don't have the slide. I'll have the slides right in front of us. But it says, "For me, a story of the sort I want to write is still further limited to this recipe. A man finds himself in circumstances which create a problem for him. And in coping with this problem, the man is changed in some fashion inside himself. The story's over when the inner change is complete and the external incidents may go on indefinitely." So Heinlein was an author of novels. He had a couple serial novels, but being entirely honest, most of his were standalone one-offs. And even though there's a propensity towards writing series in a number of ways now, I would still argue that rarely do authors of popular fiction, of science fiction, get to spend as much in-depth, ongoing time with their characters as we do with ours. Within our hobby, we see our characters through highs and lows, through boredom, through intense moments of struggle, through triumphs. We see them through wanting to sleep in, or through that third time that they've been to the gym that they just didn't feel like, or through going to get breakfast because they have to eat before their shift. We see them through both the obvious plot moments that are really exciting to write, and also through the moments that are just the day-to-day. And that's not always something you see. And it's, in fact, frequently not something you see in novel writing for a number of really good reasons. But that's a notable difference between this hobby and what we see other writers doing. They craft their characters to be fully in depth, but they don't necessarily have to think about all of the down moments where they're in their own head, getting breakfast, waking up, going about their day. So, simply put, if you want to create a believable character, particularly in this hobby, these characters have to go through conflicts. You'll see on that slide 5, that there's a little snip between a conversation that Kyle and I had that's just literally talking about 2 characters where we've been writing these characters through a conflict, and they were having a really bad day. I mean, when I say a bad day, it's like the ultimate of a bad day, and we knew that there were a lot of bad days ahead of them following it, and it was one of those moments where you hate writing what you have to write because it's really going to hurt the characters, but it's necessary and important and does a good job moving them forward. So, so you have to put them through things. So we're going to start by going back to just super basic story structure. And there's a reason I want to cover this. I don't know where you encountered story structure in your education. For me, it would have been late middle school, early high school. But the basics of any story, there's the exposition, which is the setup. In our plots, we're talking about the first post, or the if you have a GM who does captain's logs to launch things like that. That structure that basically gives us the beginning of the plot. The rising action, that's the part that leads up to the big moment, for us is going to be all of the joint posts. So all of the pieces, all of the characters, all the things that happen throughout the entirety of the plot leading up to the climax, which is the ultimate conflict. So there will be conflict early on, but the actual What happens? Where does the rubber meet the road in finality? The ultimate conflict, sometimes the aha moment as well, that results in some kind of change in circumstance. And then immediately after that, and usually much faster, is the falling action. It's going to be, okay, so we had the crisis and now something is going wrong, or not going wrong, I'm sorry. Now something is moving in another direction, and we have that quick kind of follow-up of the immediate aftermath. The last part of story structure is resolution. And resolution in any other story, in any novel, in any show, in any of the end of a plot line would be an epilogue, or a chapter that jumps you ahead 6 months, a year, 20 years. Something that lets you see a glimpse of the character's future. It tells you maybe not a perfect happy ending, but that the things don't end at the end of the plot. Typically, the aftermath, the true long-term repercussions of what happened in the story isn't touched on once the story ends. So that's significantly different for our writing. In our stories, the writing continues after the plot ends. The characters need to be continuous. They're going from plot to plot to plot, and typically in a linear fashion. It's not common that there's a lot of time jumping in what we're doing. Not to say it never happens, but it's not common. And the resolution of the plot you've finished is going to impact the plot you're going to start next. How your characters have dealt with that, what happened to them, where they are now, all of that. At the end of the day, the easy answers for characters are really hard to come by because we can't simply write an epilogue and go, okay, cool, everybody was great, and they went off to the kingdom, and the dragon and the knight were friends now, and everything's grand. It doesn't work that way in the way we write. At least not if we want it to be good storytelling and realistic character development. So I'm pointing this out because the conflict itself, the moment of, oh my gosh, is not the most important element of your character's development. It's a lever. It's a thing that functions to get you moving. But really, where the hard work of character development tends to happen is actually in the resolution and in the aftermath. How does your character process the conflict that they engaged with? Is there any lasting trauma? What, if anything, changes in their perspective or their behavior, or how does this affect the people around them, the people they work with in their department, their roommates, if they're in relationships, then their partners. All of those people are going to have some kind of interchange. So I break this down into 3 types of conflicts, and really we're focused on the last one, which is the evolutionary, but I just want to, for a hot second, touch on the first 2. So there's everyday conflicts, and these are really like the spice of what we're writing. Everyday conflicts are the things that happen in daily life that make your characters believable. Things like homesickness, things like waking up on the wrong side of the bed, or having a conflict with another character about, which one of them is using up all of the water ration in the shower, or, those types of things. A stubbed toe. It's the stuff that just happens normally in your daily life that sometimes is an inconvenience. It rarely causes change within your character, but it adds some context and something for them to respond to, and often, like I said, it's kind of like the spice of how things go. Equally, every day you might find successes, so they're a balance between the 2. Now, going from there, low stakes conflicts are a little longer lasting. These are things that characters will encounter over time. When I say low stakes, what I mean is that they might result in change. It's possible that there will be character change, but it's long running over time change. It's not the kind of change that comes because there's been some kind of explosive moment in their life that they need to react to. This is the kind of stuff that's like, hey, I made a mistake and it's impacting, others around me. Entrenched interpersonal conflicts. Stuart is not in our presentation right now, but I joked with him earlier that I was going to use one of his characters as an example had I gone down the road of talking about low stakes. But the things that are like, hey, this is my nemesis. This person is a frenemy. There's ongoing friction between two characters, or something's broken. Like a really good example of this is if you watch The Big Bang Theory. There's an elevator that's broken. It's constantly referred to. They're constantly having to go up and down the stairs. Like it's a low stakes conflict, but it things revolve around it. Like the difficulty of carrying their laundry up and down. All of that, it creates opportunity. So keeping that in the back of your head. The evolutionary conflicts are the ones that I think that we tend to be a little more nervous about. These are huge conflicts. These are things that shape your character's mentality, their behavior, their decision making, sometimes their morality. And ripples of these conflicts often span numerous plots. So when we think about our plot cycles within Sims, we're not talking about, the kind of change that we're going to start the next plot and go, oh, okay, well, back to the normal, back to what we were at. We're talking about the kind of change that might absolutely adjust how your character responds within the plot. So that's where surface tension comes in. Yes, your everyday stuff, your low stakes stuff, they can build up and build up and build up. But your evolutionary conflicts have a tendency to be the straw that broke the camel's back. They are the thing that went, okay, well, we've handled so much and so much and so much, and suddenly your character explodes in some way, shape, or form. Unable to handle something, addressing a problem, struggling utterly. These are big conflicts. And so to help shape that, we're going to talk about the 4 trauma responses. And I'm mentioning these because they're a really helpful framework to think about how you write your characters in crisis. So we'll start with just very high level. Is everyone here familiar with the 4 trauma responses? And I'm being very particular about it being 4. And most people are familiar with 2 or 3.
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Anybody else? Nope. Okay. So if I say fight or flight, everyone familiar with that?
Yeah, I know what that is. Yeah.
Cool. Anyone here heard of fight, flight, or freeze? Cool. That's not new. How about the 4th one? Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn? Anyone here of the 4th one? Okay, cool. So these are when I say trauma responses, really what this is there's been a major crisis, something bad has happened to your character, and they're going to respond in one of these ways. Now, my one caveat to all of this is that we're basing this on human physiology, and we write in space, which means we have alien physiologies. When you're really comfortable with an alien race, you can take these and adjust them to your race. So I want to specify that. We're really talking about human reactions here. I think that they can be broadly applied across species, but you might have a species who doesn't react in any of these ways. If they don't, I'm gonna put the note out there that it's on you to create a believable reaction, which means that you're gonna have to really consider the why of why they don't. This is where I wish my slides were working. All right, so the 4 trauma responses. So we're going to look at these 2 ways. What are the emotions that are going on in the response, and what are the physical reactions that are taking place? First, fight. Someone tell me what they think a character would be feeling if they are experiencing the fight response.
Well, they want to run away.
In the fight case or the flight case?
Oh, I misunderstood.
No, I know. They're really close together, so you're fine.
So the fight, well, they want to attack. They're aggressive.
They're aggressive.
Scared, angry.
Angry, yep. Yep, I'm seeing anger and rage. Anger and rage is the most common one that people think of. Fury. What other types of things might cause someone to be in a fight reaction? Because keeping in mind, these reactions are not always happening in the moment of conflict. They may also be happening as a person responds and addresses this conflict after the fact? What kind of pain? So that's a really good question. So, and I wanna separate let's back this up. I want to separate the emotional, like what is the emotion, from the physical, from the behavior. Okay, so something to keep in the back of your head. Good, it's a good point though. So, what I've got on my slides here for fight, anger and rage, irritability. So the folks who are having a fight response are much more likely to snap your head off in a conversation. Defensiveness, they don't like to be questioned because they have a need for control. Folks who are in that fight response want to be in control of things. They may be intimidating and they may be resentful. Flight has some overlap. Who wants to touch on that one? Thoughts on flight? Anybody? What emotions a person is feeling in the flight response? Fear is the biggest one. Yep, absolutely. Fear is a big one. And I've separated on my slides fear and anxiety because they are two different, they're very tightly linked, but they're two different things. Watching fix type. You were going to say, yeah. Well, so I agree. I think anxiety and fear, like I said, are linked, but anxiety and fear are functionally different in terms of how they play out. What they may look a lot alike, but I'm going to make the argument that they are notably different. Just typing. I'm going to wait for that comment, and then we'll keep going. Also, Gowron is staring into my soul. Good question. Is choosing to walk away the same as flight? So a lot of times I have to make the out-of-character decision to walk away in character because of not wanting to lay hands on another character. Hold that thought. I think we're going to want to discuss that when it comes to what the physical reactions are, but I would love to hear what folks think about it. It's a really great question. For flight, I do have fear and anxiety, but also stress. So ongoing stress, restlessness, and like physical tension, like this like sense of something's there's that overbearing fear of what's the word I want? Of something being threatening to you. There's also in flight a significant amount of avoidance, which is why I say we might want to talk about that separately because you're going to see that elsewhere. And a lot of insecurity, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of, I don't know if I want to get into that. I'm going to talk through freeze and fawn. So freeze is, if you think about the general idea, in an actual like moment of fear, some folks just freeze. They don't know what to do. But the freeze reaction after the fact, in the aftermath, comes with numbness, detachment, a different feeling of anxiety that tends to be more like dread, feeling overwhelmed and powerless, disconnection or dissociation, and shame. And then fawning, and this one was new to me as I was preparing this, is the reaction. It's a particular type of trauma response that has to do with ongoing crisis, where the person fawning is trying to minimize the hurt. So fawning can come with low self-esteem, again with anxiety and fear, uncertainty, powerlessness, numbness, and resentment. So putting those to the side, I think the more interesting part here, where we're going to get into the question that was just posed, is actually in the physical reactions. So what I would love is for the next 2 minutes, take one that interests you, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and tell me what you think a character that you have, any character, I don't need background, might physically react, how they might react. Do it in whatever way feels most comfortable to you. If you want to do that verbally, if you want to do it in writing, if you just want to put a list, whatever feels comfortable. I would love to know if your character is having a fight response, a flight response, a freeze response, or a fawn response. What does that actually look like in a character?
I have a young character. She is a ensign science officer, and she is new to away teams.
Okay.
And she has gone into an incredibly dangerous situation. Fortunately, she's with a bunch of Marines. But my intention with her, she's actually an NPC, but my intention with her is that I want to show these feelings from this new ensign on her first away mission and how frightened she's going to be. She'll probably freeze. She'll probably want to run. She'll, and then she'll feel bad because, oh, she's looking like an idiot in front of these senior officers.
As you describe that though, like what's the physical? So what I'm going to push you a little harder because I love all of that. What's the physical reactions that show that she's having those emotions?
Okay, well, her first one, and they've entered this Starfleet ship that's been taken over by this alien entity. And there's eyeballs coming out of the walls and hanging from the ceiling. And she walked in there and she had a mixed reaction. Her eyes went really big. She stopped dead, and then wanted to throw up.
There you
seeing all these eyeballs.
That's
Yeah.
a disgust reaction. That's a good one. So I'm watching. There's folks typing too. Make sure we get to those.
I can give you an example of a character that I've done that's done almost all of those things.
Go for it.
So I think you were in the presentation where I talked about a character that I tormented purely for the fact that I thought it would be fun.
Yes.
And so I took an ensign who barely made it out of the academy and threw him on a ship as the only human on the ship. And why that matters is because every other character that I introduced at the start of the story was an emergency hologram of some flavor.
Oh, amazing.
So he became by default the captain of this ship. Now, granted, it's a small protostar class. It's not he's not running around on a sovereign or anything, just really tiny ship. But he's it. He was it. It was kind of a contrived way to do it, but it made for some I think fun storytelling where his initial reaction was why am I here? Why is this happening to me?
Mm-hmm.
It was just sheer panic. It's like I can't do this. I can't run this ship. Like even with all these holograms, I'm not the captain. And yet all of the holograms are going, no, you are the captain. Like we're not going to do this. You are. So, he had to grapple with his feelings of, inadequacy and, the self-esteem problems. And as the story goes on, he doesn't necessarily get over his fears as far as I've written it, but you can see the little baby steps of him going from, the flight kind of responses to more of the fight response where, he's starting to take agency of what he's doing and he's starting to, instead of running away from the problem, he's starting to confront it. So
Nice. I like that. Just reading through and C's comment here says he plays an engineer on a sim. He was just arrested for treason because some imposters were on board, making it look like he messed up a tricobolt device. When he was arrested, he wanted to experience a bit of flight because he knew that he was innocent, but he was still being arrested for treason, and he wanted to get that information but couldn't while he was in lockup. That's exactly the idea. And also, apparently, if I had just paid attention to Reese sooner, I would have known that there was a weird permissions situation going on and been able to show you slides sooner. So you're all very patient and kind. You should now be seeing my slides if you would like to see them. A little bit about examples. So these are all particular physical or mental, emotional reactions, responses, but they are still derived from physical sorts of reactions for all of the trauma responses. So for fight, I mean, you want to think about, especially fight and flight are both, they have some overlap here. That adrenaline rush, so increased heart rate, muscle tension, rapid breathing, increased blood pressure. What the body is doing there is prepping it to do something that involves exertion. So when we think about fighting, you know, that's your body going, okay, we're gonna go do this. The same is true of flight. From everybody, so we're going to slow down the processes that we don't want to get in the way, so we're going to slow down digestion. But you'll also see in that one, because we're running away, there's more of a heightened senses and an alertness, kind of thinking of like animals that stand up with their ears perked, that kind of sense. In freeze, in the aftermath in particular, what you see is a lot of difficulty in moving any one direction. Difficulty making decisions, social isolations, sometimes physical sensations that make it seem like there's a stillness there, a rigidity, a heaviness, a coldness, that mental fog that kind of comes out of nowhere, and a lot of shame. And you'll see shame in multiple places, but shame really plays itself out in uncertainty. And then in fawning, this was really going to show itself in kind of an abandonment of self. Overemphasizing other people, people pleasing, excessive apologizing. Unlike all of the others, you don't have the physical reactions that are trying to run away. Those heightened reactions go away. In fawning, they actually diminish. Where we're trying to like, okay, so we've got they might have a reduced or a heightened pain response. We've got a diminished heart rate. They're conflict avoidant. So you can get a sense of like how characters in a fawning state might respond. Okay, so let me share an example. So if you have not had the absolute pleasure of encountering Sheldon Parsons, let me introduce you. So the character of Sheldon Parsons is written by a friend of mine, and he created him, before I came back to simming. So this character is at least 5, if not a little more than that, years old. And he is an ensign, originally was an ensign on USS Adelphi, and a part of the engineering crew. And like importantly, this is like one of those sweet, socially awkward, kind of, I don't know, like conflict avoidant. Like you can kind of get a sense of the character even just by looking at his face. Like, hey, like he's geeky, he's tall and gangly, he's a little bit clumsy sometimes. Really lovable character. Bumbling, I think, is one of the terms that Brad has used to describe him originally. And in the first mission where Parsons appears, the chief engineer, there's a crisis in engineering that results in having to make a in-the-moment decision of save the many at the loss of the few. Which is like the kind of decision nobody wants to make. Nobody wants to have to think about that. It's like the worst. But in this case, this is what was going on. So Nico Oliveira, who is the chief engineer, orders Parsons to seal a door, and behind that door are 5 other engineers who will not make it. Now, we've gone from conflict to like high trauma. Because if Parsons obeys the command, he's dooming 5 people to their death. Even though it's not his command, he's the one who's being told to do it. And if he doesn't do it, he has jeopardized everyone else. This is like a no-win situation. No matter what, someone's gonna die. In the middle of this, Parsons is also injured. So like we're talking about a character who is dealing with significant physical pain. We learn later that that he thinks possibly that his leg is broken. The bit you're seeing across the bottom there is the moment in which he makes the decision and follows through on the command and seals the door. And you can see like the agony of it. And what I love about this was written, like I said, about 5 years ago, is this moment of experiencing the physical of it. We know that he is upset. We know that there's grief, but we also see this moment of him watching the doors slowly close. And we hear the silence in the aftermath, and then see him slumping against the wall and not caring, even though we know he's in pain. There's this rocking back and forth, like that moment of like true difficulty. So, is it got a severe injury, which can be evolutionary in its own right, and the decision to cause harm to others. And I did not highlight emotional trauma because it is not the principal piece, but it is the side effect of the decision that causes harm to others. So we also have emotional trauma here. This is what the evolution of Sheldon Parsons looks like in the form of Inside Out characters. So if you haven't encountered Inside Out, first off, you're fabulous, but you need that in your life. I'm so sorry that you have not. Second, these are all different emotions from Inside Out. And so Sheldon starts off 5 years ago as this fear character, this like, hey, I'm not quite sure about this. I'm super uncomfortable, socially awkward, socially anxious. I'm worried about all the things that could go wrong. And goes from that to having made this decision and having to live with the aftermath of it, to spending an entire plot cycle as anger. Now, we're talking about bumbling, sweet, geeky, fun, socially anxious. Parsons in the next plot line, the whole next plot arc, is this very angry, resentful sort of character. He's in fight mode a lot of the time. He will bite your head off. He does not want anything to do with anyone else. Everything hurts. His body is, I mean, we've got modern medicine here, but he's struggling to heal from the wound that he's got despite modern medicine. And there's this question of like, have we reached some kind of psychosomatic issue with pain? It takes him that entire plot cycle to come to some kind of improvement, but he's still not better. And we only start to see him come out of it when the ship is back in the Alpha Quadrant. So this is a Delta Quadrant ship. And the writer, because we did have to do a time jump onto a new ship, the writer indicated that he had to go through months of therapy to get to a point where he now is not fear, but is these two characters here in the middle, which is embarrassment and disgust. So he's a little softer. He's not just fear, he's not anger, but he's got a little bit of like, he's got strong opinions about things, about what he doesn't like, and he can be easily embarrassed and unsure and still socially awkward. We have a delightful moment in once we're passed into like a pause where he walks into a space with one of my characters and literally falls over because he's trying not to look at her. So like it's just a delightful kind of, the bumbling is back, but it's a little bit different than it was before he had experienced that. So we've seen this shift in Parsons. And then finally, over the last, and I think we're talking about, this game is coming up on 5 years now, there have been easily 5 to, I don't think it's 10, but we've seen a lot of plots between now and then. And we've seen Parsons have to evolve, have to rely on his knowledge, but also come to trust some people. come to be more open about himself and about his fears. And ultimately, we see him finding a spot where he is joyful. And I wouldn't say Parsons is 100% confident, but he's much more confident than he was. We now know he has this shared love with a friend of Transformers of old cartoons. He has these delightful rainbow unicorn slippers that get referred to all the time. He's starting a relationship with another character who you can see on the screen there, and he has some regular anxiety moments, but they're smaller compared to what fear was as a driver in him at the beginning. And so we've seen this evolution of Sheldon. Okay, so I want to talk about some specific examples and just give it. I've got 3 here. I'm watching my time. I've got 4 here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you each a couple seconds to kind of skim. You don't need to read in depth. But what I'd like to think about is in each one of these cases, what are you seeing in the example that describes what loss or what each thing looks like, what each thing sounds like. How do you know that the emotion being indicated is felt without actually having the person say it? So I'd like you to think about that, and then we're also going to add to that in the comments anything about this where you're like, hey, I would have done X to indicate that. So we're going to start with fresh grief. So this is actually from, you may remember the earlier screen grab that I mentioned where Kyle and I are talking about how our characters are going through the awful. This is actually a section from that post that we were referring to. Just want to go ahead and take a skim and tell me how you know that this character is experiencing absolutely fresh grief. I'm watching it in chat, so I see there's folks typing. Give it another couple seconds. Yeah.
Well, when I've been through several severe grief periods when people have passed away, and when you're numb, you have difficulty talking, everything hurts when you wake up, like your body can hurt, and you're not ill or anything. It's just the pain, because the pain is throughout your whole body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that is mentioned here. That starts out, everything hurt. Everything hurt. NC's put in the comments, one of the big things that they saw was that the person said, quote, she never hurt anyone. And you can tell from that comment that this is a feeling for this person, that they're struggling with this moment, trying to comprehend. One of the things that stood out to me is this moment of the physicality of it, in the ragged breathing, the leaning into his fingers, like that moment of like, oh gosh, like you can imagine this character curling in on himself. And what you don't know from earlier in the post is that they're currently sitting on the ground. He's sitting on the ground kind of with his knees up. So you get this feeling of like inward drawing, like, wanting to be in the fetal position. Okay, let's try a different one. This one is anger and shock. So tell me how you know that this character is angry or shocked. And there are other emotions mentioned in here that are on the extreme side, but those are the ones I'm looking for. Anybody? So to me, the one that stands out. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say his body is rigid. Like he's standing rigid. He is not moving. He doesn't look relaxed.
Yep.
It looks like he's trying to hold himself in because he wants to let go.
Yeah. You can see that fight moment in here, right? The fight reaction. Every inch of his body felt taut with restraint, as if the very air around him had become charged. Like this sense of holding oneself back from attacking is a little bit of what it feels like. And this is a relationship conflict that's being described here, but it's a physical reaction that we're seeing. All right, panic. I put panic in here as a separate one because there's anxiety, and then panic is one of the reactions that goes with it. What from this do you see that describes panic?
I was going to say it pretty much looks like a classic panic attack. This has been building up over time.
Mm-hmm.
Now she's to the point that, she's crying, she's breathing hard, she's shaking, her heart is pounding. It's a pure classic panic attack.
Yep. Yeah, those are all keys. The weight on her chest is another one. Nowhere in here does she specifically say, or do you specifically hear her say that she is panicking. But you can tell, like you get this sense that, oh my gosh, something bad is happening. And that there's a lot of physical out of control feelings. Panic attacks, to be clear, look like a lot of different things. But when you're describing a panic attack in a character or a moment of panic, those extreme physical reactions are key. All right, last one. This one is describing betrayal. Where can you tell that the character is feeling betrayed, or one of the characters is feeling betrayed?
The outbreak of anger, I think. He rocked angrily to his feet. He's nearly shouting, he's growling, he's, becoming aggressive.
Yeah. And I mean, if you click on the link for the Portuguese there, it'll actually take you back to a translation of what the Portuguese says, and the translation itself is rough. It's not friendly language. It's very to the point, it tracks with the angry reaction. But definitely that's a hurt reaction. This is not I'm angry because somebody else has been wronged. It's angry because I feel wronged. Okay. So I'm not going to talk about this in detail. I just want folks to know it. This slide, I did put in a slide here that has a lot of really great resources. Some of these are resources I used to put slides together. Some of them are just resources that I thought, gosh, I'm going to tuck that away for later. These are great resources if you're thinking, I know my character's got to go through processing something big, and I don't know how to do it in a way that feels natural, if that makes sense. So the 4 trauma responses are indicated here in another number of different ways. There's a great one that's talking about the 4 fear responses in the workplace, and since a lot of our characters are on a ship where that is their job, that can be a really interesting perspective to consider, is how is this impacting their work. Some of this is just basic definitions. What is this thing exactly? The discuss test is interesting. It talks about I don't recommend you. I mean, I guess you can. You can do this for yourself personally, but when you look at that, one way to consider is if you answer the questions as though you were the character. And then lastly, these deeper details. If you want to get into some more in-depth pieces, relationship conflict. Conflicts in organizations, the workplace conflict is mentioned here a couple times. PTSD, mourning, things like what does a person who's mourning need versus what do the stages of grief look like, and things to know about fear. So these just, again, want to really arm folks with resources they can run with. So I want to leave it at this. This is really the last thought. I worked hard to try not to have a Helen Keller quote, to be entirely honest, but this really is a good quote to talk about. The character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Characters don't develop there. Only through experiencing trial and suffering can the soul be strengthened, vision cleared, ambition inspired, and success achieved. In this case, Helen Keller is talking about personal character, but I thought it was appropriate that this really also applies to how we develop the characters we write. There's a reason that character has a double meaning, and this is one of those occasions where it really fits nicely. So we're up on time. I'd be glad to answer any questions. You're also welcome to find me over on Sim Central. I'm here as well, but please feel free to drop me a note. And I'd be happy to talk in more depth about any of these things, but I hope it was helpful. And thank you all.
Thank you, Beth. That was great. I really enjoyed that.
I go ahead and drop the slides in here as soon as I can figure out how to stop streaming now. Ta-da! There's the slides for anybody who's in here and didn't get a chance to grab them earlier. Certainly encourage you to feel free to use those any way that's helpful. And thanks for your patience while we figured out the technical issues that I clearly could have addressed if I had just paid attention to my DMs. I think you can all probably hear my son in the background. I think he just stubbed his toe. Speaking of conflict.
Actually, your mic is pretty good. We don't hear the background noises at all.
Amazing. I just heard him stub his toe. So. Cool. I'm going to turn this over. Who is next in here? Let's go look at the lobby.